The cell phone ban, we are hugely supportive of, like hugely supportive of, even though we use cell phones, to deliver therapy. We view it as the cell phone as being a positive in that sense because we're meeting kids where they are. In fact, if you look at the zip code analysis for New York City, we're going into all these underserved communities that have difficulty getting healthcare because we're meeting kids where they are, which is basically on their phone, right? So we're using it as a mechanism to get to them. So that's the background on the cell phone issue for, relative to us and what we're seeing. We know that there is a social media crisis, social media addiction crisis. You've seen the Surgeon General report. The social media addiction crisis is the greatest threat to teenagers more than cigarette smoking. So just to put it in context of how bad it is. Um, so what we do know is that if their kids are on their phones, there are multiple different negative impacts. So first off, the average number of hours a teen is on their cell phone and social media is now eight hours a day. A third of teenagers are on it constantly, like all the time, right? So the result is increased loneliness, low esteem, uh, significant amount of unhappiness. 45% of the kids reporting high degree of anxiety. 40% of teenagers reporting that their life is essentially hopeless. And 1 in 4, 25% are reporting significant suicide ideation. So that's just the issues relative to cell phone usage and social media addiction. If you add to that the other dangers, predatory activity, inappropriate exposure to sexual content and pornography, cyberbullying, eating disorders, which increased 70% of the 70% of the kids we're seeing in New York City are girls, and eating disorders relative to body image is a big issue. So those is the other dangers in addition to social media. And the third category is there's a significant amount of evidence now that exposure to cell phones constantly and social media is having a huge impact on actually brain development and the ability to learn, right? So those are the three big, really negative categories around, why it's bad. So why the ban? Well, we know that the ban does several things. One, it significantly improves loss of distraction. I mean, for the teachers, it's incredibly positive for the teachers relative to not having the cell phones. Secondly, we know that cell phones in actually classrooms actually decreases learning, right? So those are the two negative. The positives are when you take the phones away, there's increased social development, increased peer-to-peer interaction, increased activities relative to in-school, increased positive activities in the community. So the positivities are fairly significant relative to removing them on what the governor has done on bell to bell. And quite honestly, giving her a shout out. It is remarkable that she got this done and that we passed it. There's now 8 states in the country that have cell phone bans. I still believe New York State is the largest. So it is remarkable that it's happened.
What are some of the things that parents can do? Because sometimes I'm sure they're throwing up their hands and they're
Yeah,
saying,
they're right. So I think so. There's several things. One, not everybody is you need to set like everybody says set boundaries, but you really do need to set boundaries. Like, is there a time of day that the kids are going to put down their phone and not use them? That's number one. Okay, on the weekends, is it a 4 hour, 6 hour time where they're like you can't use your phone, right? That's it. Second, there's some really interesting data that the worst thing you could do is let your kid have their phone when they go to bed at night. Take it away, let them charge it, but they should not have it in their bedroom at night, right? So that's rule number 2, right? Is nothing at night. There are some communities that actually have a pledge. It's called not until eighth, meaning a bunch of, a lot of parents have gotten together and said, okay, we're all going to agree that none of our kids are going to have cell phones before 8th grade. That's still relatively young because it's about 13 years old. But if you get your group, your peer group to agree, it gets rid of the peer pressure that the kid's having that, oh, my friend has it, my 3 friends have it, how come I can't go on it, et cetera. So I think that's a really powerful thing if you could get your community or some of your community to agree to some sort of to pledge. The other for us at Talkspace particularly and the Teen Space program is like everything else, you need to watch what your kids are doing. right? And notice it. You will notice when kids become withdrawn. You will notice when a kid is depressed. You will notice when things are different than they were 6 months ago. And the answer there is to get help. It literally is to get help. You can, whether it's us or another therapist or the teen space or whatever program, whatever it is, as a parent, which is not easy to do, is if you can't deal with it, then get somebody who could help you deal with it. That's our message, right? Is is like anything else. So I say to parent, I say to people, if you walked in your kid's bedroom and they were 13 years old and you found them smoking, what would you do? Right? You'd basically be relatively apoplectic, I would think, right? Like, okay, how are you smoking at 13 years old? This is the same thing. And you have to figure out how to intervene. And I'm not saying by any means that it's easy. There's no question because of screen time and everything else going on, and it's very, very difficult. I get it, but the parents really need to be involved. We're hoping that the state would also be interested, and we actually think that Talkspace could cover the rest of the 900,000 teenagers throughout the state because our model is very, very scalable for a variety of reasons. We have literally 500-600 therapists licensed. They're texting multiple kids at any moment in time. So we would love to see it at the state level. There are other states that are looking. There are certainly, as I said, other cities already doing it, other counties already doing it. We have another state that actually is using our platform for we call threatened youth who are involved in the juvenile justice system to make it easier for them to get therapy. And just this is not about an alternative. This is an adjunct. What I mean by that is the school council is doing a remarkable job in New York City, New York State. The problem is they're overwhelmed, right? You can't you go in and it could be a 2 or 3 month wait, whatever it is, they can't possibly handle it. Plus, we're intervening before something happens. People ask me all the time, well, you have 988, you have suicide phone calls. This is about getting to kids before there's an issue. This is about talking to them, when they have an issue. That when we did our focus groups before we launched the program, the one thing the kids said is, I want to talk to somebody, I want to talk to them now. Like I need, which is what you would figure. They want, the instantaneous, like, how do I solve a problem? And that's what we do. We're like, if you text the therapist at 3 o'clock in the morning, she or he's not going to get back to you. She'll get back to you at 9. But it is 24/7 to be able to have a conversation. And that's what that's really why we've had the success that we've had.
Yeah, no, that's great. How long has that program been down in the city?
We're coming around to the end of our second year. It's a
Okay.
it's a 3-year commitment with New York City and the Department of Health. And as I said, the results have been, really quite good.
Yeah,
It is the largest mental health teen initiative in the country.
yeah, no, it's impressive and impressive to start
Right.
not such an easy school district. It's
Right.
pretty
And by the,
impressive.
and by the way, what we think is issue, it's it's applicable to rural population because it's the same thing. You need a phone, you need internet connection, you need a web, whatever it is, however you get onto getting your access. So we can pretty much see anybody, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah, no, that's great. Trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything else you'd like to add that I'm missing here or that you wanted to get out there for parents, for educators?
We've the school systems are a very important part of this. The Department of Education's, we've had multiple discussions, multiple different jurisdictions. Um, we the important part of one of the important part of the programs is we as Talkspace have a huge commitment to actually getting the kids onto the program. So this is not one of these like you go out there and you do a bunch of advertisements and you hope they sign up. We have committed to the city and our other jurisdictions to getting kids onto the platform. So the reason that's important is we are in schools. We do lunch and learns. We're actually in the parks. We're in the playgrounds. We are where the kids are. We go in, during lunchtimes. We do assemblies. We have a multitude of people and teams that are on the ground that are getting kids to sign up. So we're very proactive about both on the marketing side and on the in-person side to get kids. So it's a real partnership with whoever we're dealing with, whether it's the county, the city, the school district, the state, to really make sure it happens. This is our moral imperative, put it that way.
Yeah, it's great. And I guess just lastly, I just thought is I feel like sometimes you see all this data, and it can be discouraging. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, but you see the positive feedback that you've seen in New York City. Um, that's got to be some light at the end of the tunnel here, uh, for you and for parents and for these students that are being helped by this.
There's,
Um,
yeah, I don't have it with it. We've had some incredible positive feedback. I mean, I literally, honestly, we've had, no names, we had one kid from the Bronx High School Science. I'll never forget this because his email to us is basically you've changed my life. Literally, you've changed my life. That kind of stuff. So we have a bunch of that. Most of all of our, comments on social media have been incredibly positive, relative to what we're doing for them from both kids and their parents, who've we've had literally parents who said, you know, thank you for being there for my child because they had such a difficult time dealing with it. They needed, we'll say an objective arbitrator to get in between to deliver therapy. Um, and we've intervened. We've had kids who we've had to refer to Child Protective Services. We've had kids we have what's called a warm handoff. Like if there's an issue with a kid, the therapist is responsible for making sure they get to whether it's an emergency room or or get to their parents or guardians. So we are part of that journey. If there's an issue, that we help them address it. We've had a bunch of
yeah.
kids that we've had to have hospitalized.